Welcome everyone to our Brilliant Basics webinar. My name is Louise and I look after our business marketing efforts in the Nordic region. I'm here today with my colleague Henrik Sørensen, who is a client partner and one of our consumer goods experts here at Facebook. Today we have about 45 minutes together, 30 minutes where Henrik will present key insights and best practices, and about 15 minutes for questions. So before handing it over, I just want to encourage you all to submit your questions through GoToWebinar, and we'll try to answer as many of them as we can. So that's all for me from now. Over to you, Henrik.
Thanks for the introduction, Louise, and thank you all for joining today's webinar about Brilliant Basics for FMCG. My name is Henrik Sørensson, and I work as a client partner in the Nordic region with focus on the FMCG industry. For today's session, I will guide you through Brilliant Basics, which are our best practice principles for marketing on our platforms. As Louise mentioned, we will end this session with a Q&A, so bear with me for 30 minutes, and I will try to answer your questions in the end. Brilliant Basics are media, creative, and cross-media planning principles that are backed by Facebook learning and research. Using these principles tends to mean better sales and brand results, particularly related to marketing mix modeling and ROI results. The application of Brilliant Basic varies with each brand's own context and should be supported by a brand's campaign learnings. It's also important that you always start with a measurable business objective in mind. However, we observe that these general principles are consistent across brands, markets, and business objectives, and they are a good starting point for how you think about advertising on Facebook and Instagram. These principles will provide you with a best practice checklist that can easily and consistently be used, make your advertising investment more efficient and effective, and help building your business using Facebook and our different platforms. All learnings in these narratives comes from historical campaign data from some of our biggest as well as smaller clients across the world. We also included third-party research conducted by some of our global research partners, such as Nielsen and Oracle. Brilliant Basic consists of 3 different planning principles: media excellence, creative excellence, and cross-media planning. But before we start, I would like to give you a short introduction to how people tend to use our platforms in a mobile world. I find it quite useful to have this in the back of your mind when you think about Brilliant Basics. User behavior on mobile differs compared to how we consume media on other platforms. As you all know, Facebook is based on feed delivery and was originally built for a desktop environment. However, we have noticed that the shift to mobile actually means that people consume content 41% faster than they did on desktop. And I use the word did here, because the first thing that is important for you to remember is that close to 90% of all time spent on our platforms comes from mobile. So when thinking of advertising on Facebook and Instagram, have this in mind and try to plan accordingly. Of course, the shift to mobile also means that people use our platform much more frequently. People on average visit Facebook 12 to 15 times a day, and by coming back so frequently, we actually see that people on average scrolls through 90 meters of feed every single day. That equals the total length of the Statue of Liberty, which is a lot when you think of the size of your mobile screen. So people consume a lot of content, and when scrolling through a feed, we surface the content that is most relevant to each individual. As they scroll through, they pause on ads and content that they find interesting, and since nothing on Facebook is forced, people using our platforms are truly in charge of what they consume and engage with. If they don't like what they see, they look for awesome elsewhere, and all it takes is a flick by the thumb. While scrolling can be fast, it takes people less time to identify and decode content on mobile. Research conducted by MIT shows that our brains have actually evolved during the mobile evolution and work faster today than it did only a couple of years ago. Back in 2001, it took us a quarter of a second to process our thoughts. 2014, that number went down to 0.13 seconds. Let's see what this looks like in practice. So in this example, the ad for McDonald's only appears on screen for 1.5 seconds. However, that time is enough for most of us to recognize the McDonald's golden arc and also pay attention to the word spicy and recall seeing a pepper fruit. I show you this as a reminder to why it's important to think about storytelling differently on mobile, which we will cover later in this webinar. But first, let's explore the first planning principle, which is media excellence. In this section, we will talk about why the objective you set matters, frequency, how to think about placement across our different platforms, targeting, and last but not least, penetration. Facebook is an objective-based platform, which means that our algorithm will always try to deliver the cheapest outcome possible based on what you're trying to achieve. As a marketeer, you should always aim for a brand or sales outcome, not engagement metrics such as clicks. Clicks don't really equal results. In fact, the correlation between ad recall, brand awareness or purchase intent and click-through rate is less than 1%. Which is why you should always aim for brand and sales objective and not clicks. Clicker people are up to 5.5 times more expensive to reach compared to non-clicker people. And since 91% of all the people who buy your product won't click on your ads, clicks really aren't a tangible business metric. Last but not least, these types of metrics really narrow down your potential target group, since our system, instead of going for penetration, tries to find people more inclined to take a certain action. Same thing goes for other objectives, such as video views. In that case, we'll try to find more people that are inclined to watch video, which might be fine, but it's always important to understand the sacrifice you make by setting a certain objective. Frequency. This will cover how you think about frequency and how many times you need people to see your ad in order to achieve your predetermined business goals. Historical campaign data shows that a good starting point when it comes to frequency is at least 1 to 2 times per week over the course of the campaign period. This number comes from several branding campaigns where we have been studying frequency in correlation to ad recall and lower funnel objectives such as intent. However, a lot of things comes into play when you start thinking about frequency. Think about message complexity. Is this an existing message or a new idea? What's your brand needs? Are you promoting a new or an established brand? Are you launching a new product, or do you just want to remind people to visit McDonald's by showing them the well-known golden arc? Are you the category leader or a challenger brand? You should also think about external factors. Is it low or high season? How long is the campaign period? And how many other media channels do you have in the plan? So start with 1 to 2 per week and adapt based on these questions and what you're trying to achieve. A higher frequency is obviously required if you're launching something new or if the campaign period is of a shorter nature. Optimal placement is really about efficiency and effectiveness across our different platforms. All our platforms are centered around people that are logged in. So by placing advertising on Facebook, Instagram, and our ad network, Audience Network, you can be sure you're optimizing reach and frequency around people and not around platforms and different placements. This is known as placement optimization. When comparing campaigns, both through placement optimization to campaigns utilizing different placements standalone, we see that our system managed to deliver incremental reach to a lower cost per person reached. More importantly, we see better results in terms of brand awareness due to the fact that we let our system optimize towards the objective we talked about earlier. So unless you have a particularly good reason to buy our platforms separately, always opt into placement optimization to make sure you get the most out of your investments through our platforms. When it comes to targeting, I'm well aware that it can be tempting to try to be as precise as possible. However, both internal and external data suggest that in order to increase your impact, you should always cast a net wide and target as broadly as you can within your potential target audience. The Bible of brand building for FMCG, the book How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp, suggests that advertisers should always advertise to everyone in the market for a product you sell, rather than just limiting your communication to a small segmented audience. An example being made is that even Coca-Cola, one of the best known brands in the world, benefits from trying to reach new category buyers rather than engage with their core audience. The reason for this is that half of Coca-Cola sales comes from non-frequent buyers. It's therefore much more beneficial to try to convey new people to buy your product rather than just trying to retain frequent users from leaving. At Facebook, you are able to build mass reach due to our high penetration of daily active people. As you can see on this map, Facebook have a daily penetration across Europe in the target group of 18 plus of between 35 and 77%. So use that possibility wisely and stay away from micro-targeting, even though it might be irresistible at first sight. Least but not last, make sure you go for as high penetration possible within your target group as your budget allows. All research shows that high reach campaigns tend to drive more offline sales and also to a lower cost per impact. A meta study we did based on 178 sales driving campaigns showed that the top quartile campaigns in driving incremental sales had twice the reach compared to the bottom performing quartile. These top quartile campaigns had incremental sales that were 139% higher compared to the lowest performing quartile, and furthermore to a 10% less cost per impact. So remember, high reach campaigns online tends to mean more impact offline. So to wrap this section up, always set the right objective and avoid using engagement metrics such as clicks. Think about your message complexity and adapt your frequency accordingly. 1 to 2 times per week is a good starting point. Make sure you buy our placement across platforms in order to drive efficiency and effectiveness. Target as broadly as possible in order to attract new category buyers and increase your brand's market share. And try to reach as many people as your budget allows without sacrificing frequency. And remember, higher reach equals more offline sales. Now we have covered the easy part of Brilliant Basics, so let's move ahead and talk about creative excellence. When done right, this is where you will see most impact from your Facebook advertising. Research shows that up to 80% of a campaign's ROI can come from excelling on the creative side. This section will cover the importance of grabbing attention quickly, how to frame your creative for the mobile screen, why you shouldn't rely on a voiceover when telling your story, and why executing fewer but better assets is the way to go. Thinking of the amount of content people scroll through every single day, the single most important rule to incorporate is to grab people's attention fast. If you don't convey a clear brand identity and message in the first few seconds, your whole campaign might be jeopardized. At least you aren't giving yourself the best possibilities to succeed. Here we will look at 4 different examples of ads that does this really well. This first example from Loves really managed to tell a full story in just under 5 seconds. All of us parents get instant recognition, and they managed to do this while keeping the brand and product in screen from the first second. The next example from Felix Cat Food does the exact same thing. They also start with the end in mind, so people can only watch for 1 second and still get the product as well as the brand. Those that watch for longer get the storytelling in reverse, where they start with the payoff and utilizing the mobile canvas in a creative way. The world's most known ketchup brand solves this by putting its hero front and center. Even if you only watch for a short amount of time, you get the message that Heinz ketchup only consists of 100% natural ingredients. And this last example from Kettle potato chips launches a new flavor by actually letting the viewer take a peek inside the container and highlight all ingredients that makes up the new product. So none of these examples require the viewer to read a long copy in order to understand the message. Neither do they need you to watch the video to the end. It's important to understand that you need to get your message across inside the actual ad. Eye tracking studies shows that it's where people are focusing their attention, so you can't rely on your profile picture for ad recall or a copy about a picture for message association. Everything needs to be incorporated in the ad itself. Here's a fifth example from Google that also does this really well. Short, to the point, and managed to present both a problem and the solution within a few seconds, driving the need to sign up for the data cloud services. So when creating content for mobile, it's always wise to think about how you could bring your idea to life on this platform and not how to adopt an existing TVC. A Facebook commissioned Nielsen study looked at how the cumulative impact from several video campaigns is spread out over the course of different view lengths. When looking at ad recall, an average of 47% of the cumulative impact came from people that watched the video for 3 seconds. Same thing goes for brand awareness and purchase intent, with 32% and 44% respectively. What's important to state here is that these video campaigns were not mobile optimized. So it's a huge opportunity at the table to increase this impact by starting to think about how to utilize these first few seconds in an optimal way. We see the same thing when it comes to offline sales. As with branding objectives, a longer view is indeed worth more, but when analyzing the incremental sales, over 50% came from people that had watched the video for 3 seconds or less. It's therefore important to try to evaluate your campaigns on actual impact rather than proxy metrics such as engagement or view lengths. Frame for mobile. Since the majority of people use Facebook and Instagram on their mobile phones, it's important to run ads that utilize as much of the screen as possible. Simply put, help your creative work harder by start creating ads that are vertical or at least square. Here's a campaign from Salomon that runs the same creative on 3 different canvases, making it really easy to see how much more attention you get by running with larger formats. This campaign were also included in a test we did where we compared the impact from horizontal creatives to vertical and square. The study showed that 7 out of 10 campaigns utilizing vertical video received 3 to 9 point increase in ad recall when compared to horizontal, making vertical storytelling a must to include in your creative strategy. A third thing to remember is that most people watch the content in feed with their phones muted, so you can't rely on a voiceover when telling your story on mobile. Here's an example from My Taxi that managed to paint a picture of all different scenarios in life where you might need a taxi, and that My Taxi got you covered. They do this by putting their brand in the center and also by playing with text and graphics. Of course, the ad is both brand-centric and in a square format. So since you can't rely on sound when telling your story, you need to tell it visually. Another way of doing this is by using text and graphics in a creative way. Rather use overlays that just slap on subtitles, but of course captions is better than nothing at all. You should also include a sound file in order to delight the ones that actually view your content with sound on. It's a little different when it comes to stories, where we actually see that 60% view stories with the sound on, making this a placement that can be utilized if sound is important to you. Fourth and lastly, I urge you all to focus more on creating a few really good assets compared to spread your creative budget more thinly. It's way better to allow your creative to have a wearing effect by showing it to more people more frequently and over a longer period of time than try to switch creatives on a regular basis. Think of this as you would with TV, and I'm sure you wouldn't switch your TVC on a weekly basis. So these 4 learnings are truly key to make the most out of your advertising on Facebook. One effective way to make sure this actually gets done is to incorporate these principles in all your creative briefs. Also have your agencies send you the creatives to your mobile phones instead of evaluating them on a big screen, which is far from how it will be consumed in real life. The last planning principle is around cross-media and how to plan your Facebook advertising in conjunction to TV. By using TV and Facebook together, you can increase your reach to include people that only use one or the other platform. Research that have been done across Europe shows that TV and Facebook works beautifully together and complement each other in a perfect way. In this study, we have been measuring campaigns across Europe, and we see that on average, you can add 10.7% in incremental reach by adding Facebook to your existing TV campaign. This result is true for broad TV audiences, such as 18+. When looking at younger target groups, we usually see the opposite, where TV is incremental to Facebook. The reason for this is that Facebook and TV tends to be stronger in different target groups. In this study, for example, 44% of the Facebook TRPs were delivered to light or non-TV viewers. TV, on the other hand, is extremely strong in older audiences, where Facebook tends to have less penetration. Apart from generating incremental reach, we also see that the overlap being made generates incremental impact by increasing the likelihood of remembering an ad when you see it on several platforms. It also covers for the multi-screen phenomenon, which is widely spread across all target groups. By running these measurements, you can learn how TV and Facebook works in combination for your target group and start planning accordingly, either for incremental reach or for better frequency distribution across all age groups in your campaign. So that's the last planning principle and the last slide from me. So thank you all for listening, and we open up for questions. But I would like to leave you with this complete list of brilliant basic principles so you can have in mind when you ask questions. I would also urge you to download this list and really start to implement it by crossing off your future campaigns toward these learnings. And remember, 80% of the ROI can be achieved by taking the creative seriously and start executing for mobile creative. I will take a few seconds to group your submitted questions before jumping into the Q&A.
Do you want to just read them yourself?
Okay, so we got one question here around frequency, where the question is: frequency 2 per week with high reach, always on, is high. How should we think with a limited budget? Should we prioritize reach or frequency? Well, first of all, I think when looking at frequency and looking at always on, I much rather do a few bigger campaigns throughout the years than try to have a low frequency campaign always on. So think about maybe running 2-3 campaigns a year instead of try to have the always on campaigns with high frequency. We also have questions around creatives, and most examples in this presentation are very short, and around if they only should run with short creatives. Well, looking at the creatives and looking at going back to the user behavior on Facebook and on mobile feed, I think you don't always need to have short creatives, but it's super important that you nail the first 3 seconds. So the length is of second prioritization, but first you need to make sure that your brand come across in the first 3 seconds and that you get your main message across. Apart from that, you can run with longer creatives. So we have one question here about the length of campaign periods, and this is a tricky one. We've seen that a lot of the research we've done on offline sales, we see that campaign periods that run for 10 weeks perform better than shorter ones. But that is of course in conjunction with that they are using all the other recommendations. So they have the penetration and they have the frequency. So if they do that, longer periods tends to work better. But think about the product life cycle of your product. So if you tend to buy it, I don't know, every third week, you can run with shorter periods. If it's a detergent that you buy on a monthly base, you can run with longer campaign periods. We also have a question here around using the same asset for Facebook and Instagram, and I would say that's perfectly fine. What you could do in order to use placement optimization in the best way is to add one format that is for the story. So you can have one format for feed and one format for stories.
We're just waiting for a few more questions to come in.
Yeah.
We have one here.
Here's our questions around video and if video always is better than images. And I would say yes and no. If you have a mobile first video, that is always the best creators to use. If your video isn't mobile optimized, I think a static image or just a GIF would work better. But if you think about how to get your idea across on the mobile screen and really create after that, then you get the best assets. But if you are choosing between a static image that is good branded or a long form video, I would go with imagery. We have one question here again around why we shouldn't run ads with clicks objective. Well, looking back at the study we did with Nielsen, we saw that when comparing clicks to branding objectives, such as brand awareness or ad recall, the correlation was zero. It was no correlation between that, and neither for offline sales. So that's one reason. The other reason is that when you buy for clicks, Facebook will go out and try to find people that are most likely to click on your ads. And that is not the same people that are most likely to buy your products. All the reach you are buying will also become more expensive since you are competing with all e-com marketeers that are aiming for the clicks. So as a brand marketeer, I really urge you to never use it unless you have a really good reason to drive traffic somewhere. Otherwise, go for reach or brand awareness. We have one more here about setting the right objectives. And this is it better to optimize for video or for reach? I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you just want to have high penetration, and the creative you're using is super succinct and clear, I would say it's better to optimize for reach. When you optimize for video, you will get less reach to a higher cost, but you will also get longer video views. So if you have a more complex message, or if you only have long form video, then I would suggest optimize for video views and not reach. And then we have a question about using brand logos and if we should have them in the creative all the time. And this also depends. If you are, for example, McDonald's, maybe the golden arc will get the message across. For a less known brand, I think brand logos actually works pretty good. I'd rather go with a logo than maybe not get my message across at all. So try to incorporate in a good way in one of the corner on a product that is clearly shown in the ad. But it's super important that you get your brand across, either if you do it with logo or with a great creative.
All right, so thank you so much for submitting all your questions. We hope this was useful to everyone. We will be sharing all the materials directly with you on email. There was one question about sharing the slides potentially with clients. That's cool too. You're going to get it all sent to you by email, so you can take that on. So I think that's about it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Muted.
Nej.